All right, good afternoon again. For the record, Steve Hyatt, Division Manager of the Program Management Division, here to discuss the Resilient SRQ multifamily affordable housing project selection and the $40 million worth of CDBG DR funds available. So real briefly, we've seen these slides before, but as a brief reminder, the Resilient SRQ program was created due to the $201.5 million of CDBG DR funding and due to the impacts from Hurricane Ian and the continuing unmet needs. There are a host of requirements with this funding, and again, as a reminder, 70% of our total funds must be used to benefit a HUD primary national objective, which are those low to moderate income households. Otherwise, they all must meet a HUD national objective, and must have a tie back to Hurricane Ian, and all funds must be used in Sarasota County within 6 years, and all funds must address an unmet need, so there can be no duplication of funding. So again, we're talking about the new multifamily affordable housing program as part of the Resilient SRQ program. And there's $40 million allocated through the HUD approved action plan. An application period was open March 19th, 2024 through May 1st of 2024. And we'll get into what projects were submitted here in just a moment. And as a reminder, this is the scoring criteria that the board approved for staff to evaluate projects. And those scores are reflected on the spreadsheet that we'll have here in just a moment. So you can read that there, but there's scoring based on the financial plan, leverage of funding. As we know, a lot of these projects have to have additional funding sources to actually be closed and constructed. The project readiness, the project impact, the number of affordable housing units, the period of affordability. So there's a minimum requirement of 20 years for these funds. So some of the project submissions exceeded those requirements and were awarded more points. And then a pre-award assessment. So basically, we wanted to evaluate projects and their sponsors or their organizations that propose the projects as to their experience with this funding source, given the significant amount of regulations behind it. So in total, it went up to 110 points. And I'm going to hand it off to Laurel here.
Thank you. For the record, Laurel Varnell, I'm the program manager for Resilient SRQ. So as Steve mentioned, we had applications that were open for 6 weeks. And during that time, we held meetings with applicants, we had information sessions, and from that, 20 total projects were submitted. Of the total that were submitted, 19 were deemed eligible for a total request of just under $150 million, and that is for total funds available for $40 million. And that's just a note underneath that all projects in this category are considered LMI, and that's because they're all, to be able to do new construction, you have to have a certain ratio of LMI apartments that are deemed as affordable. And then a note too that the BCC award is conditional upon subrecipient agreement execution and satisfaction of an environmental review. So we do have to go through the full environmental review process. There's a potential there that there may be issues that pop up with the land that we won't know until we are further into the environmental review process. So all of our funds would be conditional of the successful environmental review process. And this is one thing that we added as a lesson learned from ARPA. So we have a recommended deadline for securing funds that we are recommending that the board, at the board's will, be placed into our subrecipient agreement. And this is a deadline for the applicants to have secured all funds needed to successfully build the project. So we're recommending that if funds are not secured by December of 2025, that staff will come back to present alternative options for board consideration. And we got this deadline because HUD has a deadline for us of May 23rd, 2026. That's HUD's deadline for us to designate any projects as urgent need. So if we decided to backtrack 6 months to give the board plenty of time, if we needed to swap projects around and use that urgent need designation, we're still able to do that within that time frame. And so with that, I'm going to pull up first a map that just shows the shows all of the projects and where they're located. And then we'll jump into a spreadsheet, which I believe all the board has had ahead of time, and we'll go through and hopefully select up to $40 million of multifamily affordable housing. So on your screen here shows where all of the projects are located, and I'll zoom out so you can see they're all numbered, and those numbers correspond with the cover sheets and also in the board packet and on the spreadsheet. So project number 1 is the same all across the board. So you can see there's a cluster up here in North County, and I'll zoom in so you can see which projects those are. And then I'm going down into South County. You can see the projects that are down more in South County. And then finally in the Northport area, the projects that are located there. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm going to have Steve come back up and help me with the spreadsheet.
Great. Thank you, Laurel. Okay. As always, I love your interactive Excel spreadsheets and maps. They're super helpful. And there's the Excel spreadsheet. Okay. Comments from the board? Thoughts? No rules on this. We can just have open dialogue.
Can I just ask a question on
Sure.
that? Just again,
Commissioner
in terms
Kutzer.
of the obligation by the end of '25, what's the date that they must be spent by? Is it still going out the full 6 years?
Yes,
Yeah,
they
we want
still
them.
right. They still have 6 years to expend the funds, and that 6-year clock started for us on February 28th of this year.
Okay.
So they would still have. We would work similarly like we did with ARPA. We would make sure there was plenty of time for them to successfully complete the project.
No one on the board. Commissioner Kutzinger, then Commissioner Smith.
Chair, if you could,
Commissioner Kutzinger, then Commissioner Smith.
can we just talk about process here? Because what's the process going to be here? Because obviously this is an impossible task. You've got $150 million of requests and $40 million to spend. I'm just wondering, are we, when we're looking at these projects, do we just kind of go through and say, these are the projects that I would support? Are we saying that we're going to partially fund some of these projects? When they ask for 15, are they going to be okay if we say, well, we can only allocate 7 or 10? Or that's the kind of thing I'm trying to figure out here, because just logistically, what's the thought about process?
Well, Commissioner Kutzinger, if you just wait, Commissioner Smith, if you could pause just for 1 second. Unless there's a huge objection from the board or even legal, Laurel, A through F, I'd appreciate if you would, or A through E, I'd appreciate if you'd hide that simply because I don't want this to look like we're polling in any way. This is supposed to be discussion. And a collaborative effort of discussion. Anything referencing that might be construed by some as polling. I'm not trying to play weekend attorney here, but that's just common sense to me. So thank you, though. Thoughtful, it's just procedurally it might be a concern. Commissioner Smith.
Well, my understanding from the one-on-one with Steve and Laurel was that we are going to give them our thoughts on where we'd like to put the money into which one of the projects, and that sidebar that you had them disappear was going to show how each one of us was voting on which projects. My approach, I guess we each had a different approach, but I guess the thought was we would give our thoughts and then see where we lie and then discuss among ourselves where we're going to go from there. I'm assuming that some projects may get more attention than others. Some may not get any attention at all for whatever reason. Anyway, that was my thinking. Similar to what we did it previously.
Commissioner Nunder.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Apologies. I having done my homework, I've kind of, and thank you for my packet, my help. I like that, having that physically for notes. But I have, I think, done a pretty good job at highlighting the projects that I thought were, in my opinion, appropriate. Happy to share those as far as going through the process. Chair, whatever you think is appropriate. I mean, I'm happy to just tell everybody, if we went down the line, what I thought. And I, in fact, did not have, I couldn't get to the 40 million. After reading and doing all my research, the projects that I picked, I didn't quite get to the 40 million. So for whatever that's worth, I'll leave it up to your hands.
No, I think Commissioner Nunder, that's fine. As a matter of fact, like Commissioner Smith mentioned, like very similar to what we did last time on this is, I think, just discussion and thought. And if there appears to be a broad consensus of it, then we can maybe throw a motion out, or if you think there's support. I'm probably overthinking that too much. I want to be careful we're not polling too much and taking them one at a time polling, including a slate. So Commissioner Rainford on the board. Did you want to?
Oh, I don't. I'm ready to just to speak my piece.
Well,
if you will.
then you know what, Commissioner Rainford, if you don't mind, Commissioner Nunder had the floor. Commissioner Nunder, go ahead,
okay.
and then Commissioner Rainford. After that.
I'll just go page by page if that's okay with everyone. So on page 1, I had project number 1 and 3. And for my mathematical purposes, it's been a while. I just kind of rounded. I used 4 million and 4 million, just for my simple mind. On the page 2, I had number 11 and perhaps number 9. And that's actually, I'm going to rely on my fellow colleagues here. That's about as far as I got that I felt comfortable with my research and doing all that. So thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Commissioner Rainford.
All right. I just don't want to duplicate anything there. So can you just scroll through what those were again?
1,
3, 9. I also had those. I think we had comments earlier on one-stop housing and Sarasota Station, and I think that really the model that Mark has done, I feel confident. I mean, we've dealt with this on multiple of the ARPA projects about risk of projects getting done on time, and I feel confident. I think he said 4,000 units. Maybe I'm misquoting him from earlier today, but I have confidence that he's able to deliver on that project as well. And the other one was the on the park apartments. I also had on my list. That one is, I think there's an additional owner in Michael Saunders in that. But one of the things that I really like about that project, and I think he mentioned it for both projects in his earlier conversation, but that first responders would have an opportunity to have some of those units specific to our sheriff's unit, I think, on Michael Saunders. And the other thing is, I think most of these projects, I did a little side table on all the projects, but if you look at the total cost per unit, they're significantly lower than some of them. Some of these options are 500 that I didn't select are over $500,000 a unit. I mean, that's a single family home in Sarasota. And if it was for single family homes, I would have probably been more in favor of it and help people build equity. But anyways, those were the ones I would add. So I guess 11 and 13, but totally comfortable with the other selections. I too didn't have a full 40 million, and it's not a secret that I've wanted to pivot some money to infrastructure because I believe this is Hurricane Ian money, and as close as we can get to allocating that money to people that were affected by the storm, that's more important to me. To help reduce some of the tax burdens on infrastructure. So happy to have that conversation, but I'll at the board's will.
Yeah, no, it's great. Commissioner Smith.
Well, I guess I took a slightly different approach. I spent the whole 40, but I doled it out. Some I gave. Well, anyway, let me just go through it. But I'm not sure we're going to be able to use this chart, only because area, let me just go through it. Number one, they were looking for $4 million and change. I was going to give them $2 million. The second one, the Sarasota Housing Trust Fund, they're looking for $1.10 million. I said, okay, give them $1 million. The Cortina number 3, they're looking for $4 million. I said, I'll give you 3. Number 5, they're looking for 14.6. I said, I'll give you 5. Lincoln Avenue, number 7, they're looking for close to 10. I said, I'll give you 5. McDowell House Partners are looking for $1 million. I said, I'll give you the $1 million. Number 10, Jacaranda Heights, they're looking for $16 million. I said, I'd give you 5. One Stop Housing, Sarasota Station, they needed 15. I'd give you 5. Number 13, they're looking for 4.2. I'll give you 3. Sarasota Housing Authority, Lofts on Lemon 2, looking for 7. I'll give you 5. Sarasota Housing Authority, Cypress Square 2, number 17, they're looking for 7. I'll give you 5. And that brought us to 40. So that was my approach.
Commissioner Rainford.
Yeah, just my comments on your approach. I think that it's important that when they had to list the funding mechanisms, that it's a complete and whole funding mechanism for each individual project. And I'd be concerned about cutting back, especially with what we just heard, on any individual project, to make sure that like what our actions aren't making that project not able to go forward, and then we end up in the same situation that we have on some of these ARPA projects where they obviously committed to those numbers. I wasn't here, but that's from what they've testified to. I've heard that. So that was my only consideration in making sure that they were fully funded for the ones that I selected. And just to be fully transparent, what I planned to do later in this conversation was on our previous infrastructure list that listed all of the different municipalities, the different projects, and so forth. We funded a lot of projects outside of Sarasota County's list. And what my suggestion would be is to fund the Sarasota County list in its entirety, which I believe is an additional $6.8 million in addition to the affordable housing that I listed. And then whatever the difference of that is, and I had the conversation with staff, but I would like to move that to Fire Station 27 to make sure that we can get going on that. So those were my thoughts.
Wait, Commissioner Rainford, could let me catch up to you on that. So you're suggesting that any money that was not spent here would go back to the infrastructure pot, assuming that would fit criteria from the feds to fund those specific projects you're talking about?
Yeah, well, I should probably clarify a little bit more. So the projects I think that you had listed on the screen prior to what Mark just said, I think totals 28 million. Can you confirm 28 and change?
We'd have to, we put all of them here, but we can go back and put the ones before. Commissioner Smith?
Oh, okay. On my list, it equals 28,281,908. Sorry, a little gymnastics to move
Oh,
that
okay.
quick.
That was projects 1, 3, 9, 11.
1, 3, 9, 11, 13.
Okay.
And while you're doing that, because I know that'll just take a second, some of the things that attracted me to these projects too is, we heard about the aging out of foster care on the Castle one. They're already building on that site, and we saw kind of the outline of what that site's going to look like in the future. So that was exciting. Number 3, The site's already owned. They were ready to turn dirt according to the application in December. It's a low rise, which I think South County, you know, they're kind of over high rises, so low rise is a good option there. Number 9, again, it's a low rise and it's with mixed use. Number 11 and number 13, I already spoke to the first responder part of it, but the value per unit is a huge driver on those. Do you have that? You got.
You had, Laurel, you had one clicked, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
this
okay,
is what
Okay.
Commissioner Rainford just
Yeah,
said, 28 million.
That matches it. That is correct. So I don't know if you're prepared to bring up the infrastructure part, but if you don't mind if I take a minute on this, if they are prepared.
Well,
Or do you
sure.
want to just pivot?
No, of course. I was just suggesting, is trying to think for the clerk for a motion. Let's say they had a consensus, and I'm not suggesting it does. I'm just saying, is if that's a consensus, the balance being moved to infrastructure, period, would be the motion, and
Okay.
then come back to us for maybe a different separate motion or even a discussion at another day or whatever.
So I'm open for discussion, but that would be what I would do. I would move it to the infrastructure, specifically the Sarasota County infrastructure that is listed on the previous one with any addition, which, you know, there's approximately 12 million left in this. Move it to that, and then to the balance to Fire Station 27, which we just recently in our workshops determined that that's going to have to pause for a period of time if it doesn't have funding.
I could tell you, I could easily support the concept, and specifically is 1, 11, and 13 are important in my mind, or at least a preference. So 1, 11, and 13, which ties in with yours and others, I believe, too. Commissioner Nunder had 1, Commissioner Nunder had 11, I believe. I'm not speaking for anybody. Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Cutzinger.
Yeah, well, I had several. So I feel like my bingo card was pretty much full, but I had all those. My personal feeling is that we said we're going to set 40 million aside for affordable housing, and we should stick to that, and we'll find funding somewhere else for the fire station. We've made a commitment to the community and to all these agencies that filled these applications out that we're going to spend 40 million on this endeavor. And so my opinion is I'm not in favor of taking any money out of this fund and use it all for affordable housing.
Commissioner Cutzinger.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with a number of these. I'm not sure if they've all been mentioned, but I'll go ahead with the 1, 3. 9, I supported. I thought that was.
Commissioner Cutzinger, you said 1 and 3?
Yes.
1, 3, and I'm sorry, what after
9. I'll pause on 11. I support that wholeheartedly. I really impressed with the One Stop folks and the cost per unit and the history. And so they've been involved in a couple of these projects, so I'm really supportive of those as well. 13. And I'd like to have a discussion about 4. I don't think that's been mentioned, but I know they're partnering with One Stop. So at least something for discussion, and maybe not fully funding that, but at least thinking about that if possible, because I know they're partnering with One Stop.
And you're stopping at 13, right?
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Rainford.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I think there's a lot of great ones on this, but specific to the one you just mentioned, you know, when I didn't consider that in my consideration, it's because there's $525,000 per unit.
Okay.
And the other thing was it was a $15 million ask
Yeah, it wasn't.
for 50 affordable units, and number 11 was a $15 million ask for 104 units. So
Great
it was
point.
just
No,
a
I
metric.
I
there.
understand. Thanks for that clarity.
Well, I don't even. I'm not speaking for anybody. Even a partial motion on this, or it sounds like there's some consensus on some of
Happy to
these.
make a motion.
Commissioner Rainford, then Commissioner Nunder.
Yeah, I'm happy to move approval of the full amount requested for 1, 3, 9, 11, and 13.
Go slow here. Hold on.
Sorry,
One.
1, 3, 9, 11, and 13.
What's the
And
total
Laurel,
on that?
you're following along on that? Okay, that's the one we
Yes.
did earlier. Is that a motion,
That
Commissioner
was,
Rainford?
yeah, move approval of those.
That's a motion from Commissioner Rainford. Do I have a second on that?
I will second for the purposes of discussion.
Sounds great. I have Commissioner Rainford, then Commissioner Nunder related the motion, so it's clear for the clerk, is on 1, 3, 9, 13, and 11, with a total of $28,281,908. Again, a motion by Commissioner Rainford, seconded by Commissioner Nunder. Commissioner Rainford, to your motion.
Yeah, I just think for what I already stated, I think that we have the right people on. I'm not saying that there's not great opportunities in these other ones, but on those particular ones, I really feel confident that they'll be able to deliver the project and that the projects fit in with the community and provide great value, especially in the fact of our first responders and such.
Commissioner Nunder, care to speak to your second?
Yeah. Commissioner Chair, early on, you had mentioned about Mr. Vengroff and his organization and how well they do things. I have been thoroughly impressed. Your reputation precedes you, sir. You do an amazing job, whatever you're doing. Teach others, because when I've seen the projects on the thing, it's absolutely amazing. So kudos to you and your team. You're certainly an asset in this particular area and market. And I think what's important too, that when you go down the list, you have a Sarasota project, the Venice project here. We got a Northport project and 2 more City of Sarasota projects. We're spreading the wealth around a little bit, which I think is also very important. I've always been a believer, from day one, that a lot of this resource and this HUD money needs to be in Commissioner Cutsinger's and Commissioner Rainford's district, appropriately so, because they were the greatest affected. So this is a little bit of a balancing act. I have zero heartburn with these 5 projects. I'm just looking real quick. I'll pause for, I've taken the bite out. I'll take a quick pause because I have one more thought later. Thank you.
Yeah, no, feel free. Commissioner Smith, and then I'll come back to you, Commissioner Nunder. Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, no, I don't have any heartburn over the ones we've selected here. I just, again, believe that we should probably find a home for the other close to $12 million in affordable housing. And whether we fund some partially or fully from the list that's remaining, but I can't support the motion because we're here to work on affordable housing.
Commissioner Nunder, did you want to finish your thought? I got Commissioner Rainford on the board.
I can wait for.
Commissioner, okay, then we'll do Commissioner Rainford, then
Are we
Commissioner.
moving these forward and then further discussion, or are we moving these forward and that's the end? I mean, I thought you were saying we're moving these forward, then further discussion.
Well, I think that was my purpose. I'm hearing differently here and there, so.
Well, hold on, Commissioner Cutzinger, is your question for procedural question, is that
Procedure, yes.
procedure is that there's a motion to put forward the 28 million, period, new sentence. If we want to then do another motion to do something different with the 11.7 or add other projects or whatever, it would be, it's just be under a separate motion was my
Got it,
thought.
thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Rainford, did I cut you off?
I was just going to reiterate exactly what you just said.
Okay, all right. Then I have no one else on the board. I do have a motion from Commissioner Rainford, seconded by Commissioner Nunder on the 28.281908 million for the projects that were listed and itemized. Is there anything further from the board? If not, I'm going to call the question. I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, passed unanimously. Now, just whatever discussion there is needed or wanted from the board related to the balance of $11,718,092. Commissioner Rainford.
Happy to start us off since we already started in on this conversation. I recognize the need for affordable housing. It's been a priority with ARP. It's been a priority for Resilient SRQ, but I really feel like the Resilient SRQ money, I think initially, and correct me if I'm wrong, what was the initial value of the damage? And you can just guesstimate. I won't hold hold you to it, but I know that there was just like this had $148 million worth of requests. I think it was 193 for infrastructure previously, which we only did 45 of. And I was, more in favor of pivoting more infrastructure dollars because I feel like that's where the need is to make the community more resilient. Hence the program Resilient SRQ.
So what's on your screen is the top on the green is what HUD used to calculate our CDBG-DR award amount at $201.5 million. The next one is Sarasota County's unmet needs assessment. So that's the one that we
Perfect.
did at just under $800 million. And then our current allocations you can see as number 3.
Perfect. So I think that I'm glad you had that so readily available. I didn't prep you for that. But almost $800 million. So like we're not going to solve every affordable housing need. We're not going to solve every infrastructure need. I just feel like from a resiliency standpoint, being in hurricane season, some of the things that we left off our list that our county needs that ultimately we're probably going to end up spending anyways is a great option to pivot this $12 million to that to create resiliency.
Commissioner Nunder.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Commissioner Rainford, I am surprised and very pleased that you pivoted on this. It really hadn't come into my thought process about perhaps doing it. Laurel, do you have some of the other projects from our previous tranche to maybe look up? I think that's very creative. We're in a situation, and I'm not a meteorologist here, but, La Nina is in effect. We're having a lot more rainfall here in our particular area and around the state of Florida. It might be prudent to go back, and I think I recall some, was it pumping stations or pumps and some other things that really could have a drastic or dramatic impact in our community. Thank you. And then Commissioner Rainford, if you could, I was writing, what was your suggestion? I didn't have a chance to write that down.
Commissioner Rainford.
Yeah, happy to have them just highlight it. So we might just want to write on the sidebar here, but that if you recall, we awarded $44,994,000 previously under the infrastructure, and I think you can go to the left of the list there, and items, I believe it's 29, starting at 29 through 40. If you were to click on all of those,
Yeah,
and we can read them. If
Wait.
that would.
No, we're just real quick, Commissioner Rainford, if you wouldn't mind pausing for
Yep.
1 second. Can I just throw out a thought? Is I came to this meeting very prepared for the housing conversation.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Is that if it's the will of the board to take that balance and put it back into the infrastructure programs, maybe right after break, bring it as a discussion item back to us, where then we can just refresh our thoughts on it, rather than doing it from the dais. Is just first see if there's just a consensus to do it, and then we can get into the details.
Total happy to do that.
Okay, is that just, but with that,
I would
Laurel,
agree with that. I think it'd be great to bring it back.
Laurel, with that, is just, have we disrupted any percentiles in gymnastics you and Steve have to do with the feds? Are any of that putting us out of ratios? Any just broad concerns you would have?
Yeah, so a few things here. First is that obviously we're always looking at our LMI ratio, trying to get that 70%. We know all of the affordable housing are 70%, and infrastructure was a mix of some LMI and some urgent needs. So that would be a consideration going into your next election, is just making sure that you're continuing that balance of prioritizing the LMI project, so we're not throwing our LMI balance too far out of bounds. And then our other one is, I'll just pull back up if Steve can grab that ratio, our unmet needs. I'll just point out yep. So if you're looking here at the HUD calculation, what we did is the percentages there. You'll see for the HUD calculation, 72% based off of HUD's was for housing. Sarasota County's unmet needs, 66% was for housing. And then with our current allocation, the way it stands without that $11 million is at 50% housing. So it would throw that off a little bit. You would slightly reduce the percentage that's allocated to housing, put it into infrastructure. We have been told from HUD, this isn't hard and fast, we haven't asked them formally, but that you try to stay as close as you can to your unmet needs analysis, which is that housing has that 66%. So we can certainly ask HUD if that's something that they'd be willing to consider if we did adjust those balances. But I did want to point out too that our own ratios from our unmet needs assessment and from HUD's may trigger some yellow flags in their mind. And I don't know, Steve, if you have any other thoughts about that. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Rainford, then Commissioner Cutzinger.
Yeah, Jonathan, I'm not sure if you might, I know you gave me some yesterday and about the transition. I know we talked in the past about what a minor modification is versus a major modification. Maybe you have that readily available on the, oh, there we go. They have it, Jonathan. But obviously we talked about the 20 million. I didn't try to go anywhere near the 20 million. Obviously, I think there's a huge affordable housing need. But addition or deletion of a program to benefit or eligible criteria, we're not doing that. Addition or deletion of an entire program or activity, we're not doing that. And then we're under the 20 million. So I think, as long as the LMI comes in, right, and maybe with what I just gave you, you can get an idea of where we might be. That might require a break to, beyond this discussion we're having here, to figure that out, but might be worthwhile.
Can I ask a question?
County Administrator.
And maybe somewhere in that discussion, either Laurel or Steve, if the board goes in that direction, is in terms of taking a break and coming back and discussing the remainder of it later, what would be a reasonable expectation of timing to get an answer back from HUD? And it's okay if you don't know the answer to that because it's HUD, but is that something by the end of August you thought you could have an answer on or not?
My thought is the end of August, we'd have to provide sort of justification. Generally, the response we've been given from HUD is do what's best for your community, provide the justification. I'm not sure if we would definitively get an answer back, but that's kind of been our general responses from HUD is as long as you provide justification and do what's best for your community. But I don't know in terms of moving money just because we haven't done that yet. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just to echo what Laurel stated, there's no hard and fast. There's not. We're not going to get a timeline as to when that might come back. Just to add to Laurel's comments just a little bit, and again, not saying HUD would say something, but they would, of course, want to have some good justification as for reducing the affordable housing allocation and increasing the infrastructure before the affordable housing program had even, in essence, launched and been awarded. So it's, again, there's no hard and fast. So it's just we'll have to see what happens.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Commissioner Cutzinger, then Commissioner Smith.
Well, my thought was, as we've discussed here, is to come back after the break with these, what answers you have for us. There's come up. We're not certain how it affects different percentages and such. Because these monies need to be obligated by the end of this year, correct?
No, they don't have to be obligated.
So, in other words, we have time, is what I'm saying.
That's correct.
So we have time to take a look at it and make sure we're not messing anything up. But if we move forward with 28 today, that doesn't mean that's necessarily ends that, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
You dumped your thought, Commissioner Cutzinger. Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, again, the discussion today was about affordable housing, and we haven't met our unmet needs in Sarasota County. If I saw that chart right, we're at 50.3, and we're trying to at least get to 66.2. It seems to me the prudent thing to do would be to continue to focus on what we've decided and agreed to is our unmet need as far as housing, first and foremost. And then if some of these projects, say, can't make it down the line because if financing falls through or whatever, then we can talk again about maybe that financing could go into another pot, and we'd have the justification with HUD saying, well, the folks we award the money to could make the project work, and so we're moving that over into infrastructure. But my thinking is we should concentrate on housing. It is a definite need. I'm not saying infrastructure isn't. The problem is we have more needs than money. But I still think we should focus on housing.
Commissioner Nunder.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Steve, just help me understand, just a little more clarification. Today, we went through, say, 28 million. I just put, 12 million left. What about, and the Commissioner Cutzinger touched on it briefly, we're not obligated to have this money either verbally spoken for or used by the end of this year. So my question is, again, going back to some of the projects geographically speaking, we've got 3 City of Sarasota projects, we've got a Venice, and we've got a Northport. I'm curious, and again, I think in my mind, a lot of this money really needs to be in the South County area anyway. And my question is, can we reopen the application process again for a period of time to have others who maybe were late to the process, didn't know about it, and then bring it back for that additional 12? And not that I'm completely unopposed to pivoting with some of the monies into infrastructure, but maybe we open it up again for the South County constituents that we have. Just a thought. I'm curious as to what you might think.
You can. So you can move forward with just awarding the 28 million or so of projects here today, leaving the balance of about 12 million or close to that. And there can be another cycle where applications can come back in.
So, I'm not trying to make any additional work for you or your staff, but I think in my mind, I would like to see perhaps some more South County applications here. And ARPA was before my time, and knowing the little I know about ARPA through this process, we have some projects, a lot in the city of Sarasota, which is fantastic. I happen to live in Venice, and I do hear from people and parents. I think it would be nice to see if we could put some additional South County projects underway that might be helpful. So we've got 5 there.
Commissioner Rainford, then Commissioner Cutzinger.
Yeah, no, hear you loud and clear, Commissioner Nunder. I love the sound of that, South County. There are other South County projects that are currently on this list. There's several others. And again, it's not that I'm opposed to any of those in particular. I know that some of them have already received funding under ARPA. But I think the biggest thing for me is, when I took essentially this list and went back, I hear about infrastructure far more than I hear about affordable housing, but that doesn't mean I don't hear about affordable housing. Certainly we know it's a need. And, I eliminated some of these because they're $525,000 per unit. And to me, that's not affordable. We're just spending, this to me is all taxpayer money. I know some people that spoke earlier acted like it wasn't taxpayer money, but this is taxpayer money that's coming back into Sarasota County. And I think that if I ask a resident where it's best spent, I hear infrastructure far more often.
Commissioner Cutzinger.
I'm going to agree with Commissioner Nunder on this. I think it would be great. This was, we were focusing on where it got hit the hardest. But my heartburn is, and none of these projects are, when you're looking at $500,000 a unit, contrasting that to the ones we just moved forward, many of them are, under $200,000 a unit. So I would like to see, again, I don't know the best answer here, but I would at least like to make sure that we're spending the $40 million on affordable housing if we get some good projects that we can feel good about. But it's hard for me to approve a project at $500,000 a unit.
Okay, I have no one else on the board. I thought just then unless I'm hearing differently from the board, we would come back after break, make decisions of possibly putting that just shy of 12 million on into infrastructure. And at that point, if I'm hearing you guys correctly, is if there's a change of a policy directive for this board, we could go back to revisiting it for it, or the affordable housing or not. I just think an increased investment in infrastructure is thoughtful. it's obvious and a common sense demand of our constituents. So I'm very open to the conversation, and I'm glad the idea you brought it up, Commissioner Rainford. It's, again, I think very thoughtful. I have no one else on the board. Any thoughts from staff? Any of that disruptive to you? Anything that you think any parts of that you don't think you could perform for us coming back after break?
No, I don't believe so. So the next time we're scheduled to come back to the board is September 10th. So we can bring forward the balance remaining and discuss then regarding remaining affordable housing projects, potentially infrastructure.
Hearing that, County Administrator, is there anything you'd like to add as far as
No,
making
sir. We'll be good. We will also pursue clarification from HUD during that time period as well, with no guarantee we'll get anything, but we'll pursue that as well.
Yep.
Okay, great. Commissioner Rainford, I'm sorry, did I cut in front of you?
I was going to add to that part of it. Like, I'm not a big fan of the admin cost of this. Obviously, you put a ton of work into the infrastructure. You put a ton of work into the affordable housing. So, like, I'm not a fan of it going back out necessarily. And there's others on here that are not necessarily 500,000. But I would be open to seeing those the next time as off the current list, and also taking a look at if we're meeting the metrics with what I had presented. And then the last part of that was I had mentioned Fire Station 27, which wasn't originally submitted on this, but seeing if that would be a qualifier to be on this. My initial inclination is that it is, but just to, if we could confirm that prior to that next discussion as well, that would be helpful.
Very good.
Great. With that, then, we'll take a 5 or 10 minute break. Before we do that, though, Laura, is this your last meeting with us?
It is
She's leaving us.
in 1 week.
Well, it's a true loss. Seriously, you've been through the beginning of this and just done a wonderful job. It's my understanding you're moving to Denver, which you do know there's snow there, right? Well, whoever employs you, it's definitely going to be on their asset list for sure. So appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kutzinger, did I cut you off on something?
You said we're taking a break. Have we voted on this yet?
I had Commissioner Rainford and Nunder. We were unanimous on the 28 million, right?
Do we move it forward?
Oh, I'm sorry, about the balance? Yeah, you're right. We probably should take that as an action item to, Jonathan, would you like
Do
that
you
as
need a
a,
motion on that or not?
Jonathan, would you like that as an action item to bring back on September?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Kutzinger.
Yeah, just so moved.
Okay. So I have a motion by Commissioner Kutzinger, seconded by Commissioner Rainford. Madam Clerk, that is to bring back the balance of this for the September 10th meeting to make decisions of whether or not we go into infrastructure. Is that it? Okay. With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor?